So what we're going to do today, or at least what my intention is to do today, is to bring in some information about where we're at now, what we're working into as we go into the coming months, and really set the stage for us going into this weekend where we're focused on living your planetary purpose, which is really, I think, an amazing time right now that we're living in. And when I sat down this morning and I began to meditate, I was thinking, wow, how synchronistic is it that we're doing this event this weekend in Sedona after everything that's just happened with the solar energies and the astrology and everything that we've been weathering lately. It seems like we're coming to the other side of it. So I want to touch on that today. For those of you who haven't been to a live event, we are here from the Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution. So Ethan and I run that organization, and we are focused on furthering human consciousness in all areas. So that includes not only these events, but also many other projects that we're working on. We have our Awaken Empowered Expo that we do in Detroit. If you haven't been out, join us for that. It's an amazing, amazing event. We have a magazine. We have a youth movement. We're launching our first youth camp this summer for kids, conscious kids. So excited about that project. It's been something that's been coming for quite some time now. Conscious activism movements and many other things. Today, what I want to do is bring in the guides. We're going to do a live channeling to just kind of pull together from all of you out there your unique intentions and areas of your life that need the most relevant support. And it's great to be in this collective space because you here make up this collective vibration that the guides come in to support, and everyone else out there gets to tune into that information. And I see so many common threads every single day in my client session work with things that we're all going through on the planet. Of course, this is interactive, so please feel free. If you have a question, something that you want me to address in the lecture or even in the channeling, we have a microphone we'll pass around. So just raise your hand, and Ethan will walk around and hand you the microphone so we can get your question on the camera and we can address that. And it just enriches the whole experience. So please, even if it's not a question or just an experience that you want to share, it helps us all because we are all transitioning through this, myself included. All right. So let's kind of back up for those of you who've been listening to the channeled messages as they've been coming through about what's just happened here, because we've had so much information coming in from so many channels about the event, right? How many of us have heard about the event? But I think we're all speaking the same language. We're just using different interpretations. And what I've noticed is we have this progression that we're on right now. And as human souls, we came to experience this progression, right? So we tend to put these events into these really huge categories, like this is it, this is the event, this is the last time we're ever going to have this big jump in ascension. Well, I don't think that's the case. What I've been bringing in has almost been like a moving train, a moving progression of us calling forth what we need to continue the journey. So it's not all of these beings out there who are saying, hey, we need to activate them because they're all going the wrong direction and they're screwing up and left and right. No, it's us becoming more of our non-physical vibrational selves that is the call and response between the universe and our soul experience that is allowing this event that we're in the midst of to take place. So the solar frequencies have been a big part of that. I know many of you have been tracking that, and in my Facebook groups, a lot of people have been posting about the changes we're seeing in the Schumann frequencies and the intense solar energies that are coming to the planet. This is intense energy to handle physically, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But it's such good information, and that's the way I perceive this. This moving train that we're on, it's always adjusting to that call and response that we've talked about. So if we're not ready to receive it, it's not going to come. There's no forcing anything here on this planet. We all have free will, and we are all communicators. We're transmitters to receive. So you can't force anyone who's not on this, in this movement or on this trajectory to the fifth dimension to change just because we have these intense solar frequencies. But what's happening is they're receiving opportunities. And I think many of us who are here, who are in this conversation, are like the reflective mirrors of these opportunities. And that's really how we show up. A lot of us who I think are on what I would call the leading edge of moving through these transitions are not here to argue against or to force or push anything, but to live our lives in a way that those reflective mirrors show up. So the physical body has been an intense adjustment. Anybody really struggling physically right now with these intense, a lot of exhaustion, a lot of sluggish body stuff, disease, things coming to the surface again. I've had it myself. We've talked about this a lot in my session work and in my lectures. And I really, in my own life, in my own journey, have had a very specific focus karmically on my physical body. And I think that we all do. So we all come in with this intention of experiencing karma in a way that we align collectively. And so let's just back up for a minute, and I really want to hone in on karma before I get into the next piece of this, because so many of us think about karma as negative, as something that we did wrong to deserve to suffer here on this earth plane. And I look at karma through my connection with the guides and beings that I work with as something completely opposite of that. I believe that karma is something that we choose to experience to keep evolving and expanding. Because if we didn't have karma, which is essentially human experience, we would prefer to stay stagnant. And so these karmic experiences, they come to, I would say, almost move vibrationally that which we are in resistance of. And for me, that shows up a lot in my physical body. And those of you who know my story know that I've struggled with chronic pain in my life. And that was one really big catalyst for my awakening. Well, with these recent energies, I've really been struggling again in the physical body, and many have. And I've really come to realize what this is all about. We're becoming these new humans right now. And I put the word new in parentheses because the new human that we're becoming is really the human that we were designed to be, that we've been led astray from. Our technology is vibrational, and I know many of you are in healing practices, intuitive practices, where you work with that vibrational technology every single day, whether it's in the chakras or the DNA or within our consciousness, in our soul contracts and our Akash, all of that information, it's our makeup, it's our technology. But this physical vehicle that we're in transports us through consciousness such that we have this incredible physical experience that we so desire to have. So what this makeup is all about in physical is the alignment of all of that information coming together and us fueling it through our consciousness to create. And the question becomes, did we arrive in this physical material with all of these genetic predispositions and things going on that we didn't want to have happen? Or are we molding and shaping that every day the way we see it in the mirror? Well, I think it's a little bit of both. We've been designed to operate in our 12-strand DNA. There's a carbon-based DNA, which is our physical lineage. We know this comes from our parents' parents. I have my dad's nose and my mom's eyes. But that crystalline DNA, it's our multidimensionality, and it comes from all of the beings that seeded us here on this planet, on this earth. And we have been so disconnected from that energy that we've only been creating this physical body and this physical experience in such a grounded human way that we've kind of lost our ability to direct through our consciousness, this physical vehicle that we're in. So those of us who've been struggling in the physical body, I truly think it's an opportunity now to direct through our perception and our conscious awareness this new human we're becoming. What does that mean? That means we have to start applying everything that we've learned, everything that we know, to our day-to-day practice. And so for me, that was not, oh my gosh, something's really wrong with me. I'm not as ascended as I think I am. I must be, doing something wrong. But to begin to say, there's an adjustment going on. There's simply a subtle vibrational adjustment going on in my physical field to make my movement here on this planet go in a different direction. And how interesting is that it aligns with the pole reversal? So anyone who's been listening to my channels or reading my posts know that we've gone through, and we're continuing to go through, a major shift in the poles. And it's a reversal of timelines. It's an injection of new dimensional information. So many of us are becoming overwhelmed with, what do we do with all of this? What practice do we use? How do we go about managing this physical body stuff? And it's really going back to basics. It's understanding that when we have pain in the body, when we have exhaustion in the body, when we have discomfort in the body, that we don't jump back to that physical DNA and go, oh, something's wrong with me. This must be karma. I did something wrong in another life and now I'm being punished. That this could simply be my physical adjusting to non-physical. That there's a vibrational path that's now opened up for me that something has to realign in order to allow. And the second you begin to think that way, don't you relax a little bit in your space and in your body? And that relaxation is huge. I mean, that's the opening to source right there. It's like the breath. When we take the breath on something before we react, we allow source energy to carry us to the next experience without overcompensating emotionally for what's going on in our field. And hey, not that there's anything wrong with emotions. I think they're purposeful and here to assist us. But in the midst of this physical transition, I wanted to bring that in because I've begun to connect a lot with Divine Mother, and Divine Mother has been channeling some writings through me, and they're just incredibly beautiful. And they're all about human experience as the catalyst for collective change, and how we so desired to be in these physical vehicles to allow that change to take place. So she defines experience and she defines excitement, which I find really interesting. She says that we as humans believe that excitement is something that brings us joy, and we desire excitement because we think it's going to be something that makes us happy or fulfills us in some way. But we don't often see that vibrational change that we're going through or that new experience, that unknown, as exciting. But yet it is, and that's the fluid energy that carries us. Human excitement isn't about what we're missing and what we're lacking that we need in our lives, but it's those everyday changes, those everyday turns, those unexpected things that come to take us down the new path. Like, we might lose our job. Is that exciting? I mean, it's frustrating. It sure is frustrating, and it's scary. It's fearful, because we rely on that job to support ourselves and children and a lot of other things. But could losing our job, just like the physical body, that subtle adjustment in the physical body saying, oh, my physical material is taking me somewhere, could that loss of job be addressed in the same way? This is taking me somewhere. Right? This is the universe. This is encoded within me to keep me moving on this path or on this journey, because we were not designed to stay stagnant. So let's take this up a notch to the collective. And we know we have a lot going on in the collective. What's happening right now, and many of you understand the grid shifts that I talk about, is I think a true modification or stability of this new grid energy. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm just going to take a minute to talk about old grid, new grid, because it is going to be a very common theme that we're going to talk about throughout the weekend for those of you who are here for the weekend intensive. So the old grid is the 3D matrix that many of us are familiar with. When we became so limited in our DNA, in our physical DNA, we began creating very limited timelines that were physically focused. And because of that, we created a grid system here that wasn't very harmonious. It wasn't intended to be this way on this planet. There's nothing wrong with what happened. We know that it created a lot of things that we see as wrong now because our consciousness is shifted, but that's just where we are. So this third-dimensional grid system, it contains some of our timelines that we don't feel very comfortable in anymore. It could be a job that doesn't really suit us anymore. It could be a relationship that was manifested through a different consciousness or a different perception. It could be the way that we earn money in the world. It could be simply our identity, the way we perceive ourselves in the mirror. Societal imprints and things that have forced us to see ourselves in the midst of that third-dimensional grid, comparing ourselves to others, trying to achieve something that isn't really natural for us in this human life that we've accepted. But this new grid is really just a design that's formed here because we've changed our consciousness. So really just our own thoughts about ourselves, our inquiry into our own souls, our inquiry into why we're doing things that don't fit us anymore, has started this chain reaction vibrationally here on the earth. And it's connected us in a way that's different. And we hear about unity consciousness every day or collective energy every day. Well, what is that? That's not necessarily us coming together as a one and physical, but it's us matching vibrationally the intentions of all things and understanding how we fit in that collective energy or in that unity consciousness, that we are the most unique piece of that puzzle that could ever be found on this earth planet. And that as our soul manifested here into physical form, we accepted that the uniqueness we had within would be so valuable here that it would connect to people, places, things, and experiences to uplift and enhance the entire earth. And that's what this new grid is all about. It's us living in that uniqueness. It's us understanding that everything that we have to offer has a fit or a place on this earth. There's no competition for that. There's no reason we have to push or fight for that. It's just something that we live, express, and flow with. And there's so much evidence of this new grid. If you look all around you, and I know Ethan's going to talk about some of that in his lecture, some really practical examples of new grid manifestations that are here on this planet. But quite simply, you just being in this room and us coming together in this space is a new grid activity. Right? I mean, us just being here resonating as a one and doing what we're doing in this space solidifies that new grid without any effort in physical from you at all, other than walking in the store and opening your minds to the concepts that we're going to hear today. And inquiring into your own soul about those concepts and applying it in your life. And it doesn't have to be hard. And I think this is truly what we're walking into. So back to grid shift, what the guides have been saying, that will also be complemented by Ethan's lecture and experience today, is that really now the only difference between timelines or people that are in an old grid situation and the new grid is the amount of density that they carry. So let's define density so we understand what that is. Our soul comes with karma, which is embedded or encoded within us, revolves around the planets, keeps us moving, keeps us changing, keeps us expanding. Karma is not necessarily a bad thing. We can have karmic experiences that are amazing. But sometimes we create density And density we don't bring with us from other lives, okay? So we didn't suffer in another timeline and bring density with us from that timeline. Sometimes we match it when we're going through transitions, and I see this in my readings a lot. What's been happening right now is this collective energy has been causing us to pull and draw from other multidimensional timelines or fragmented soul pieces. And because of that, we're beginning to uncover and discover information, desires, wants, things that we want to do and explore. And sometimes if we're vibrating in a way that is not in alignment with that information, we can match the density from that timeline and pull it in. So we have to be really careful about that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the density that we have in this life, in this linear timeline, is stuff that we create in this linear timeline. And it's usually coming from old grid analogies. It's not that reflective mirror that's showing everyone how wonderful they are. It's that reflective mirror that's saying how terrible I am because of everything else that's going on around me. I'm not ascended. I can't keep up. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a master manifester. All of these things. And when we're accepting those identities, that's how we match the density from other timelines. And we create it within ourselves. So because of everything that we've seen in the earth, the rays of the Schumann frequencies, the solar energies, the alignments that we've had, what the guides have told me is that everyone on the planet at this time is vibrating at the same speed. And I bring this up a lot in my lectures because it's just completely opposite than what I would think, because you see your neighbor yelling at the kids about walking on their grass and you say, I can't be vibrating at the same speed as that guy. But this is what had to happen energetically for all of the hierarchies to come down from the old grid and for us to be able to walk into this new grid energy, this new fifth dimensional energy. So the only difference, if we're all vibrating the same, is the amount of density that we carry. And density equals suffering, typically. When we carry a lot of density, we tend to see the opportunities that come to us in a negative light. We have fear around things that show up for us, and we don't often want to venture out of our comfort zone because things feel safe. Even though we're suffering or we're struggling in our current reality, it feels good to be there because we know what that is. We're used to that. So really, this shift in consciousness, or this shift into the new grid, fifth dimensional energy, is about suffering versus not suffering. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have things that show up for us that are difficult. I've got difficult experiences I deal with all of the time. I have things that show up in my reality that I don't like. And that's okay. In the present moment, we deal with those, we apply what we've learned, and we take a conscious road. And we express those emotions, and I think that's really valid to say, because we're not here to pretend that everything is good and wonderful and ignore the stuff that doesn't really feel good to us. What I've learned in my most recent experiences is that moving towards that uncomfortable is what releases the resistance around the timeline. Because people who suffer are typically in resistance of what's going on in their life. They don't want to move towards it. They don't want it to be there. They're looking for a solution. They want it to end. And when you're in that loop, you're really moving through old grid timeline stuff. Because that's what the old grid is. It's a karmic loop where we revisit experience over and over again through density, suffering, or the match of that information. And so we can have density and still be creating in the new grid. But that density becomes really clear when we're moving through the new grid in a way that feels very uncomfortable. So I've come up with a lot of clients in my session work who they're really expressing some exciting new ideas. Like they've had these visions for creating healing practices and communities and just amazing, amazing things. but they're struggling with it or they're suffering because they are comparing to someone else. They feel as if they're in competition to receive something, or they are trying to push what their new idea is through an old pathway, an old idea, an old belief. So when you're in the midst of a new creative idea and you begin to feel really defeated and fearful and frustrated, go back to that density and think about, what is it that's got me here into this place that I'm feeling this way? Because usually it's something pretty simple, like a comparison, a judgment, right? Societal expectation. Somebody told us we couldn't do it this way, or we expect that if we do it this way, we're going to fail. You know, all of those things are what's coming up right now. And it seems really simple, and I think it is. I think this is the application that Divine Mother is really helping us to understand. It's moving through our human experience very slow and deliberately, and applying a conscious awareness to everything that we experience, and questioning our reaction to it. Right? Are we resisting, or how are we reacting? Do you have a question? Okay. Any questions? Yes. Well, hold on, we'll get the mic over to you.
Don't we need density in order to be able to know what's good and what's not necessarily as good? Like to have that compare and contrast? Like the goal isn't to completely eliminate it, is it?
I like that question. I think that's really relevant. So contrast is different than density. And I do believe that we need some form of density to be in physical. Okay, so we chose a physical reality. There are light beings that exist in non-physical. They don't carry a whole lot of density. That's the difference, right? I'm sorry? You see the beings in the room? Yeah, I feel them. Yeah, when we move into higher dimensions aren't necessarily better. They're just a different access to information. So those light beings, they don't appear in physical because they don't hold the density that we do. And that's usually because they've ascended or transcended through a lot of the things that we're in the midst of, that we're going through in our soul experience. Contrast, I think, is a little bit different. And contrast, I believe, is a mechanism of free will. And we come with this structure that's aligned to free will. And free will means that we have our own truth and get to apply that truth in any experience or situation. Because your preferences are going to be completely different than her preferences. And that's another unity consciousness application when you really think about it. Because when we're preferring and we're in an old grid, or we've been taught the way to prefer, what's been taken away? Our free will. Or we've given it away. You know, so our sovereignty is not active in that preferring. So density I look at as a thick material, and I want to, I'm going to give you an analogy, actually. This is brilliant. So I had this really incredible experience this morning when I was meditating. I was taken through a process because, for me, I always want to keep that density clear, and I want to be able to understand how to be in this space and be as open or clear of a channel as possible. And so the beings and guides that came in, which were Arcturian, said, imagine your physical structure. And let's just do this for a minute, if you guys are willing. You don't have to close your eyes. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine. Just take a deep breath and imagine this physical vehicle that you're in. Just see the outline of it in light. Almost like a web of consciousness or information outlining your entire physical body. Just put it out in front of you as if you're looking at yourself. And then they said, imagine that body filling up with grains of sand. Just allow those grains of sand to fall through the open cracks of light, filling up your form. And just notice how far those grains of sand fill you. It could be all the way to the top. It could be halfway. There's no judgment here. Okay? And now, imagine a thick gray liquid flowing through those grains of sand. So thick, in fact, that it molds those grains of sand and holds them together like glue. And feel how heavy now those grains of sand become in your body, almost like a weight that you're carrying around. And what the Arcturians told me was, the grains of sand are all of the experiences you've had in this linear timeline. Every person you've met, every experience you've had, every exchange that you've made. And the thick gray material is the density that you've accumulated around these experiences. And so the idea is taking a deep breath and letting go of that thick gray material. Just feel it let go through your feet, outside of that form that's in front of you. And what begins to happen is these grains of sand, they float free. And so as we move through our experience, we get to draw on all of that stuff that we've experienced in our soul reality. And that's really the goal. It's to be able to use our experience without judgment, not to say, oh, I suffered through this and it wasn't fair, but to say, okay, I can take this and I can apply it somewhere else in my life. And they showed me how that sand's always shaking up. You know, it's like, have you ever seen a magnet that attracts those grains of sand and makes a form? That we have the ability to do this through our consciousness. And when we have all that density, those grains of sand, those experiences, they don't flow free. They're not available to us. And so that's really what the density is. It's the suffering, it's stuff we remember, that we continue to live, that we make our identity. And if we practice releasing some of that, we can let human experience become the basis for the next human experience and allow us to continue to expand and ascend. Does that make sense? Yeah, I encourage you to try that practice at home and let me know how it works for you. It was amazing for me. All right, we're going to channel in about 5 minutes. Questions? Yes. We're going to get the mic.
I know that we're all moving into this fifth dimensional reality, and that some of us are probably there and some of us are in and out of it.
Yes.
And moving toward it. But I'm still kind of wondering, how do I know when I am consistently there? What does that look like? How is it different from, like, I'm trying to think on a practical basis. What is my day-to-day life going to be? What's different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that dimensional reality is different from a collective perspective than it is from our day-to-day soul perspective. So first I want to say that we have access to all dimensions. You sitting in that chair have vibrational access to many different dimensions and probably go through your day tapping into different dimensional realities at different times of your life. Many of you who are here that are channels or mediums or healers know this. You can access a different dimensional reality to do the work that you're doing or to bring in information about something, okay? So we're not limited to any one dimension, but we hold dimension based on the perspective that we have. And as a collective, we hold dimension. So this new grid, old grid shift is really interesting because we're actually functioning in two different dimensional realities on this planet at the same time, which hasn't really happened before. So how do you know what's going on? Are you in the fifth dimension? Are you in the third dimension? You probably hold timelines in both, even in the fourth dimension, which is really just a transient space that we're adjusting our physical to non-physical. And so the way you can look at this is look into your timeline energy and how that feels to you. Do you have more timeline energy that's in the new grid? Do you feel more connected to things that are coming on the planet that you see aligned with that grid? Are you participating in conversations like this with people most of your day? If so, you're probably holding or stepping into a more fourth to fifth dimensional reality on a consistent basis. And, you know, for me, for example, and I know Ethan too, and I don't want to say this in a negative way. I don't really know what's going on in the world that most people tune into, right? So like, I don't know what Trump's talking about or saying or doing, and it's not because I don't care, it's because I am focused so much into my work and my purpose in this dimensional reality that it just doesn't jive, it doesn't match. There's no magnet between the two things. I usually hear about it because someone asked me about it or it pops up on my Facebook wall, right? And that's, I think, right now how we can see where we're at in this timeline split. And it's not good or bad, okay? Just because you have a timeline that still exists in the third dimension doesn't make it a negative. The way that you're approaching that timeline and your perception of it is what holds the density, okay? So we can have a job, maybe, that we chose in an old grid energy. And yeah, we know we don't like it anymore, and there's something else we want to do, but there could be a huge purpose for you that job is still there, and it could be supporting you financially or otherwise while you're building something new. So if we keep going to that job every day and we hate it so much and we suffer there and we struggle there, we're going to hold more of a third dimensional reality, and we're going to magnetize that information because we match it with our vibration. So we can still have a third dimensional timeline and bring a fifth dimensional consciousness to it, and that's really the crux of what's happening here on this planet. And if you think about it, you know, we have old grid institutions like medical institutions, for example, where we've got new grid energy that's starting to come in, you know, like alternative approaches and things, right? And that's what the shift is all about. So I wouldn't focus too much on judging your reality. Am I really in the fifth dimension yet? I think it exists, and it's your choice. It's your opportunity. Every day I try to tune my reality to the things that are in that fifth dimensional grid so that I match more of what I'm here to do. And we're going to talk about in our lectures over the weekend about open source, because open source is a huge, huge part of this fifth dimensional reality or new grid energy. And using that open source potential to really feel into the fifth dimension and be supported in that way is the goal of what we're going to be walking through in the next couple of days. That make sense? One more question in the back, and then we'll channel.
This is just something that I thought of and been thinking about in regards to synchronicity. It feels to me like that maybe in regards to your question, that when I notice synchronicities occur in my life, that's when I feel like I'm lined up and ready to shift.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, synchronicities are really just a validation of your fluid movement with the universe. So when you're in a state of synchronicity and things are flowing or aligning for you, that's it. It's a very good telltale sign that you're on the path. But also, I'll bring in this is something that has been a part of the book that I channeled recently, is when we're seeing synchronicities, especially patterns of numbers, for example, they're opportunities for us to ascend. So a lot of times I'll notice when I see a repeating number, I'm thinking something that's a judgment or opposite of the direction that I need to be heading. Or it's validation or confirmation of a thought that I'm having that's in alignment with where I'm going. And that's what the guides say, because we are sacred geometry in motion. And so when we're recognizing patterns outside of ourselves, like numbers and things like this, they're just validation of a process that we're in the midst of. And if we can be in the present moment with that and not say, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? But go back within and say, where was I at? Where was I at when this appeared? What was in my thought process? What was coming next for me? It can be a very valuable tool to help you. Another question? No? Okay. All right. So we're going to do live channeling. And we're going to bring in all of the guides, teachers, and masters that are best suited for this group and beyond, because we channel today. We'll have a general message, and then we will take questions. I usually have pens and paper, but this time we have a microphone handy. So please raise your hand if you have a question. Ethan will bring the microphone to you, and then you can ask any question of the guides that you wish. We just try to make sure that we phrase them in some way that helps everybody. So try to not necessarily avoid personal questions, but but frame it in a way that maybe everyone who's listening would benefit from the guidance that comes through. And we are the Council of Light. We are pleased to be a part of this vibrational unity of one. As many are here to assist humanity in this time, it is our intention to work within the grids, to activate your energetic connection, not only to Earth, but beyond Earth, because this is the inherent goal of how information and light is exchanged here in this universe. We wish to speak today about the way in which you are now connecting to the grids, because we believe that this information is invaluable to you in the way in which your extrasensory energy field is adapting, and the way in which you may step in to valuable energetic information and tools to assist you as you continue on this journey of ascension. We wish to start with an analogy of your Earth and the way in which the grid systems are changing. As many of you know, there have been exemplified frequencies of higher vibration that have been coming through in response to your calling. These higher dimensional energies are essentially packets or pockets of information that come from the universal Akashic record. Mother Gaia, as a living, breathing being, holds DNA. Her DNA has become crystallized through this process. Many of you may ask, was Mother Gaia not in a state of crystallization before many of the events that we have experienced took place? And what we would say is that Mother Gaia has been through various stages or states of crystallization, many of those fluctuating because humanity was fluctuating as well. When we speak of stability, we want to clarify what we are meaning as we define stability other than what humanity perceives. Stability in our observance is an energetic capacity to utilize information as it is coming to the planet. So when we speak of this new grid energy or potential being stabilized, what it means is that the information is now easily available and being utilized by humanity in real time. Real time is the essence of flowing within your chakra system as a unity consciousness or one light. You see, many of you have been segmented or separated from your one collective. And in physical, this was purposeful for you to understand that the vehicle that you hold in this reality is capable of creating singularly to accentuate collective experience. But you see, as the vibration has changed and as humanity has reached what we would call a more stable relationship to the new grid, it is now using its singular vehicle to enhance collective reality in a more fluid way, yet receiving information in real time in a way that accentuates that singular experience. We want to explain this in an example that we believe would benefit you and also give you some tools or practices to use these extrasensory tools to your advantageous ability. You see, here on the planet, we notice that humans who are in the midst of transferring their energetic timelines between grid systems have found themselves oftentimes stagnant or suppressed in their energy. They have the thought, they have the realization, they have the idea. In other words, they are accessing the information in real time, but they are using their structure in a way that is familiar to them to integrate this information or knowledge. And the physical to non-physical transition is a very important or significant part of what's happening here within your vehicles. You see, being focused in physical drove you away from all of the operating technology that you were given when you were created. That operating technology is now becoming, we would say, more online with its origination in creative sense than it ever has been before. The sounding boards that you are for Mother Gaia have also become exemplified. So in the midst of the grid shift, feeling frustrated or stagnant, or perhaps not knowing the direction that you are going, feeling as if you are lacking the clarity to recreate yourselves through a new identity, it is only the adaptation of this new enlightened structure in a time-space lag to the physical that you are experiencing. So if you find yourself in the midst of this type of transition, the best advice that we have to offer to you is to be patient in what is evolving in this physical to non-physical shift. Because by the time you are manifesting a new timeline in physical, it has already been vibrating in your field for quite some time. Now take this analogy into collective consciousness. In collective consciousness, there is a makeup of all beings that resonates in a one field. The way that you interact with that one field, or your reality as you call it, is only your ability to perceive it through your own truth. So although you are contributing at all times to human reality, you are all perceiving it through your own unique vantage point and using it as a tool for human creation. If this is the case, then we believe that your perception in this time on the planet of vibratory shift is one of the most significant currencies that you may use as a tool to enhance your abilities. Now, modifying perception does not mean letting go of your truth. It means accepting your truth in the moment and modifying your vibration through that truth with a higher consciousness. So in other words, when you see what is happening on your planet from a collective vantage point, the realization that what you are creating in your vibrational field is actually enabling collective consciousness to change becomes the way in which your technology works for you. We know this seems as if it wouldn't have a physical application, and that human beings are often looking for a physical modification, a physical process, something to advance them beyond what they know. But in the midst of the unknown, your ability to hold the faith that your truth is evolving in a field that is not seen not only enables you to receive that which you believe was hidden from you, but also advances the collective consciousness. It requires a degree of letting go of your ability to control your reality from within or outside of what you are experiencing. It is not about control, my friends. It is not about enabling your non-physical to be the energy that changes your physical, but it is about experiencing your physical in complement to what your non-physical already knows, and bringing that knowing to the surface. The coherence that is coming in now is allowing you to use the higher self technology as a tool for advancement. This higher self technology, through Gaia and her crystallized energy, is attuning itself to what we would call the Christed consciousness. Many of you are familiar with the Christed consciousness, and we will define it through our vantage point or our perception. The Christ is a master energy, a timeline in multidimensional fields that has been experienced here on this earth, imprinting you with the ability to transcend physical and reunite with your non-physical selves in harmony. You are coded as the earth is coded to remember this. The higher self is essentially a tool of Christed energy, because what it enables you to receive is valid feedback from your consolidated and fragmented energies throughout this earthbound plane that assist you in times of trouble, in times of disconnection, or in times of using old perceptions of your identity or reality to stagnate you in the midst of this grid shift. So the question becomes, how do we access this inner technology, this higher self energy? What we believe is the stabilization of the new grid is also stabilizing this tool for humanity. This is where your extrasensory tools and gifts work in concert. So the crystallization of the chakras within Mother Earth and the DNA within her is reminiscent of your own crystallization. As opposed to hearing, seeing, feeling, knowing, experiencing. You are using one field, one energy to flow through the earth consciousness and draw or magnetize to you more of yourself, more of humanity, more information. The physical shifts are something we also wish to speak of because we understand that in the midst of this timeline energy, many of you are feeling the physical resistance to flowing with where your material has been created and what it wants to change as in this new timeline you are accessing. Physical form is light in motion. Light in motion is directed by your conscious awareness in each moment through the new time grid that has been stabilized. The new grid energy is void of time. What that means is time is not a currency that must stagnate or prevent you from anything moving forward here on this earth. So when you have a physical ailment or a physical discomfort in relationship to what is happening here on this planet, the first thing we ask of you is that you notice where you are putting time constraints around your own healing. These time constraints are essentially resistance, pulling and drawing from old grid information to repeat physical situations you have already been through. So in other words, the physical body is changing or adapting. Your perception of that change or adaptation can pull in a past energy that you do not wish to revisit. Harmonizing with your physical body or your physical material requires a present moment conscious awareness, tuning the dial of your energy into that pain, into that announcement of the physical body to ask what it requires of you. Not how to resolve it, but what it requires of you. This new grid, the void of time, is something that humans are adapting to in slowing down their own reality. That means not responding so quickly in physical, but releasing the desire to respond and falling into a pattern or a rhythm of acceptance. This can be applied in many other aspects of your timelines, whether they be changes in your relationships, your soul contracts, the way in which you are creating. Slow and steady, taking the breath, is how the higher self becomes a valuable and integrated tool. We want to bring in a practice for you, and then we are pleased to take questions, and the Pleiadians step in to assist in this practice. And as we begin to soften the breath, bringing everyone in this space together, we wish to take you on a journey of trust. Your higher self is essentially a collective technology. So breathing into your space, relaxing into your space, what we wish to invoke within you is a release of your protection, a release of your separate or division, your separate energy, your divide, your division between all things. And we know that many of you have been taught that it is not safe to move through the energy field of another or to allow your energy field to be open to the universe. But as you trust, as you take the next breath, invoke or intend that your higher self step forward. Use the breath to feel the shift within your physical and non-physical energy field. When the higher self steps forward, it is no longer you in singular form. It is all of you existing on this earth in many timelines, assembled as one. This one energy of your higher soul magnetizes many guides, teachers, and beings of light that also support you on this journey. You may feel them as they also enter this space. Now, with the higher self fully engaged, not judging your ability to do this, not negating the energy that has just entered your field, fall into the heart space for a moment, feeling your breath moving through that heart space. With each breath, expanding your aura, doubling it in size. Now, what you may perceive or feel is that your auric field is now reaching the auric field of another. Those that are sitting next to you, those that are sitting behind you. Be in full trust that the expansion of your auric field is for the benefit of you, of all in this space, and of the installation of your higher self to magnetize more of its likeness. As you continue to breathe, expanding through the heart, your auric field around you, we acknowledge that many of you in this time feel separate of or alone on this earth, that you don't feel surrounded by those that are like you, that you are feeling the discord or the difference of your truth with the truth of another. This too is an adjustment of your physical and non-physical field. Expanding that auric field now to fill the space of this room, accompanying and fulfilling within you the vibration of all things accepted before you came into this physical body. The intention that brought you here into this physical vehicle. Feel the safety and the comfort in operating in collective space. That now, as a one field of light, the information, the libraries within your DNA bring more of what you need. Continue to feel into the space in this room, harnessing the energy that is lifting you beyond physical, to understand that collective energy supports you in this time. that you are not only receiving more of yourselves, but the benefit of all others that are here to heal you. Feel the flow of currency opening up in this space. This, my friends, is how the new grid operates. As you move through your physical field, feel the assembly of information becoming one with you, drawing and pulling on all things to support your journey. They are your God-given birthright, and they are held in this energetic space. The next breath, realize that this auric field may stay expanded for the duration of your time together, and that the more that you practice this collective entry into time and space, the more your higher self will show up for you in physical form. Taking a nice deep cleansing breath, coming back into your singular space with all of the awareness, all of the energy that you've assembled. We are now pleased to take questions.
I have experienced that I feel I embodied two souls within 1 year of each other. And so I was wanting for clarity, is this like a soul braiding, or do you call this a gathering your soul pieces in a visceral way physically?
Yes. We are the Pleiadians, and we are pleased to answer this question. And we believe this is not uncommon on your planet in this time for many to be vibrating into different fragmented soul pieces and bringing them into their physical field. However, there's a very unique dynamic part of your structure that is coming online that is allowing you to do this. And we don't believe that it is meant to throw you into chaos or confusion, yet sometimes your ability to hold this frequency and use the information has not yet integrated. So we wish to say that as the planet is evolving and as these fragmented soul pieces are showing up, there is an agreement that you have made with yourself before coming into this physical body that becomes honored when that higher self technology is fully installed. That agreement is that as those fragmented soul pieces are accessible by you, they are not going to distract you from your uniqueness. In other words, you are not here meant to take on the journey of a specific fragmented soul piece so much as you are to integrate the knowledge or wisdom that supports the uniqueness that you are in this physical journey. Oftentimes, when the technology is integrating in such a way that these fragmented soul pieces come in and are accepted or held onto in a way that they're experienced in visceral real time, it is because you operate in a plasmic state that is highly advanced. And we say this not as a judgment, and we request that all of those who are in this space do not judge themselves by this announcement. All of you are at varying levels of plasmic states. Plasma is only an energy that allows you to retain or hold on to information that is multidimensional, using it in a way that is applicable in your current reality. Plasmic states vary, especially as ascension is undergone. You may, some of you, be engaging with practices of ancient tools or engaging with chakra fields, for example, that are causing this plasmic state to be very heightened. And as a fragmented soul piece comes in, that plasmic state will retain the information, allowing you to step on the journey of something that you're truly not supposed to step on in such a visceral way. What we would say that is most beneficial to complement what is happening specifically with you and many others is to understand that when you find yourself on a new path, it is not necessarily the judgment of right or wrong so much as it is your understanding that that path may change that enables it to integrate with you. So as your soul is transitioning and taking on some of these fragmented energetics or timelines, go with that flow or energy in such a way that it does not have to be understood or in some way defined as something specific. and letting go of any judgments that you have around stepping onto that timeline. This opens the space of what we would call a narrow perception to allow a further integration of your plasmic state to enable you to come back into your uniqueness. So specifically what we see for you is the pathway that you've accepted, or that the two timelines that you have been on, they are meant to combine in some way, shape, or form. And this is very, we would say, very uniquely intermixed or orchestrated by your consciousness. When you find yourself on one timeline or another, be open to walking that timeline, but knowing that energetically you're adjusting or integrating the knowledge or information such that they will come together. We advise this also with fragmented timeline energies that are coming in and recognizable by all humans, knowing that they sometimes cause confusion. Humans have been taught that there is a right or a wrong path that they are on, and right or wrong in itself is more of an application of your vibration or navigation system than it is an outer reflection of what you are here to experience. So as these timelines appear to you, these fragmented soul pieces, going towards the ones that most delight you enables you to consolidate this energy and use it for the betterment or enhancement of your overall experience.
Hi. Thank you. I just would like to share my appreciation and gratitude for all that you all bring in, and for this group for coming together to create this amazing portal of energy. I'd like to just ask a couple questions about what you just channeled. I'm just trying to have a deeper understanding, and hopefully that will help everybody else too. I just recently, a couple weeks ago, listened to a channel, Chiron, and he spoke about what he called the innate, which my understanding, and when I listened to it a couple times, is he was talking about the energies of our intuition. He called it like the Merkaba, but he expanded it into what I have an understanding of a field of basically higher self, infinite intelligence, where we are fully connected and can be aware of past, present, and future, and every single timeline. And so when you were talking about, the channeling was coming through about the technology, is this the same connection in terms of the Merkaba energies, not energies so much, but the actual technology of it? And then if you could maybe just speak of that in a different languaging, and let me just...
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and then just in terms of its applying then to what seemed like a moving towards is the simplicity of being present in this every moment access, and when we are affected by things that we do not like, we do not have preference with, is to actually have a communication and conversation with these aspects, asking them what it requires, what does it need, and then in my languaging, I'm going to say, like, in that healing of towards sovereignty is to bring it into the heart, is to bring it into the love. That is the kindest thing, really, that we can do, is to ask all these parts of us what it requires. So if you could speak of that a little bit.
Yes, and we're the council, we're very appreciative of the way you've brought this information forward, and we are in agreement that there is a field that you are connected to that is a higher power. We want to explain this in a way that is more grounded for humanity, because we understand there are many advanced terms that are used to explain the way to access this higher power. And we first wish to say that the access has never been denied. You see, as you came into this physical vehicle as a soul vibration, you knew that this higher power would be your navigation system to enable the orchestration between everything that you would experience and the outer world complementing that experience to continually expand God. So what is this field, and how does the technology work to receive information that you have classified as past, present, or future, that we wish to say is not limited by time? In order to explain this, we want to go into first an analogy of the way in which experience is categorized, or the way in which experience flows in your physical reality. Because you in your linear perception perceive a past, a present, and a future. We would say that this moment contains every interdimensional timeline experience that ever has been, was, or shall be. And so if this is true, that in this moment, there's a higher power that you are already connected to that has access to this information, what is the process for receiving? The receiving is something that we believe humans hold much resistance around. And when we speak of resistance, we want to clear your mind from anything that you have done wrong, because, of course, we understand that as vibrational beings, our intention is to only raise your vibration, knowing that that raise in vibration becomes the catalyst for accessing the information through this higher power that we have so classified. You see, you have been limited in your available energy to perceive into this field, as you call it, because of what you have defined yourselves to be. In physical, you have defined yourselves to be separate of God, or separate of this higher power entity. But the first step to enabling access is to realize that in every moment, in every experience, that higher power has been present. And if you are to review your past linear experiences as you classify them, knowing that in those past moment experiences, this higher power was present, sets the tone energetically to become fluid or effervescent with this field that you have so defined. Because perception as a valuable currency is the only, we'll say, facet or interconnection of your structure with free will that we believe is consistently modified to a lower state. So in other words, your lack of sovereignty, you seeing yourselves as separate of God, you limiting your potential in many ways here on the planet, holds you away or separate from matching the frequency of this field. So the access that you require or you so desire, we ask, what is the purpose of that access? And this is where the resistance comes into play. Often, you feel as if you need access to this field to resolve a problem or an issue that you are experiencing in your day-to-day reality. And that this access to this higher power becomes the problem-solving mechanism in your life for living in perfection. And we are here to tell you that in this human plane of reality, living is not equal to perfection. Living in itself is the divine relationship to this field that enables you to continue to expand. So first, we would say, take an analogy of your desire to interact with this field and your intention to interact with this field, and modify it in such a way that the intention is only to support and receive support on your journey, not to solve a problem, not to get yourself out of any situation that is uncomfortable, but to bring meaning or purpose to that which you've experienced to accentuate the next. And this field, again, we want to say that it has not been accessed by you because the technology has not been fully activated. The activation of this technology, again, is your own divine birthright. And what does this mean? You as a singular form do not require any earthly transition or planetary alignment to bring you back into this technological state of advancement. You only need to modify your own judgments and your own identities to conform to the vibration of this higher power. This infinite field is always orchestrating through a human experience and intention, a collective energy. So to give you an example, when you have an experience in your day-to-day reality, and that experience may be with multiple human beings, how are you not accessing this higher power? This higher power must be present in order for you to be having a collaborative experience with other beings. The question becomes, what allows that experience to receive the higher knowing and the purpose to integrate in your day-to-day? It is your own perception or your own judgments of the experience that allow that higher power to be recognized by you. So again, we wish to say that the higher power, the field, was not absent. It orchestrated the experience. But your ability to tune into that higher power and use it as an advantageous tool within the experience comes from the modification of your own perception and vibration about the experience. And essentially, we would say, this ties back into our original message of where humanity stands in this state of transition between grids. Because if you are using old tools, old imprints, we'll say ancient karmic, historic timeline energies to perceive your reality, you are not tapping into this resource. Is the higher self essentially this field, this higher power? Yes, it is. The higher self knows of every experience you have had or will continue to have on this earthly plane. The only catalyst for tapping into that higher self is present moment awareness. So if you are practicing present moment awareness, what you will find is you will slowly and subtly begin to notice that this field is becoming more accessible to you. It will show up in many forms. It will not be so visceral as to receive future or multidimensional information in every experience, but nonetheless, it is guiding you and enabling you to move freely here within your free will to continue to create an alignment with this God, source, field, or higher power.
I just would like to ask, what is the actual definition of us as humans? Because aren't we just descendants of different extraterrestrial beings? And how do we become aware of the other DNA presence?
Yes, we are the Pleiadians, and we wish to explain humanity as a genetic form. You see, as the earth was formed, the earth is a living, breathing being that was manifested by many in this universe. In the same way that you are creating this new grid, the universe and many of the beings, star systems, and dimensions in this universe have also been creating. And as they have created new star systems, new planets were born. And so Mother Earth became a living, breathing being, and she so desired to be inhabited by a living, breathing, unique aspect of God that would continue to expand her. This calling or this request was met by many interdimensional beings that desired to also hybridize their genetics to form a new collective, and many grounded here. Many grounded here in physical and in non-physical form, to commingle their genetics in order to create a human race. So your genetic basis is made up of many interdimensional beings of light. You are a hybridized race of many. Yet as we say this, you are continuing to hybridize your own human form. So in other words, as many beings of light came here to seed you, they also seeded the earth with resources for you to use to continue your own hybridization. Many of you recognize these as plant forms, for example, that were seeded here from interdimensional galaxies that assist in your own creation. So although you are genetically based with many different beings of light coming together as a one, your planet, Mother Earth, was seeded with information to continue that hybridization process in uniqueness. Now, this genetic predisposition that you have is quite different within all humans. All of you are vibrating within different dimensional realities because you have crystallized different amounts of DNA. You have a physical set, 12-strand DNA, that is your human hybridized genome. This is your physical energy as it has been handed down through lineages of time that exists only in an earthly resonance. Your crystalline DNA holds the relationship to all of the beings of light that have seeded you. And as you have used the natural resources on this earth and used many ancient practices and had planetary influences, you have raised your consciousness, enlightening, activating, and commingling your crystal DNA with your physical DNA. So there are beings that are human that are able to access 8 strands of DNA and step into an 8th dimensional reality, and there are beings that access 5 strands of DNA and are able to access 5th dimensional realities. Yet you all have genetic predispositions based on your free will. So for example, not only do you have a human experience as a soul, you have an intergalactic experience as well. That intergalactic experience makes you who you are in human form. And there are times in which your DNA may match your Pleiadian experiences in a dominant fashion to bring that energy back into your awareness. So many of you are having experiences with specific beings because you have a genetic predisposition to receive information from your fragmented soul journey in the Oversoul energy, which is essentially capturing your multidimensional experiences. When you are experiencing intergalactic beings of light or dimensional beings are stepping into your reality, you will all experience this differently. And we wish to say that there are many new portals that have been opened here upon the earth in which galactic beings are present in non-physical form. The recognition of this is as unique as you are genetically. Many of you will experience these beings as visceral, physical beings in human or hybrid form. Some of you in the inner eye or within your energy field will experience these beings. We want to bring you back to the analogy of plasma. You are all vibrating in different plasmic states. Some of you are having experiences on ships that are embedded within that plasma that you are remembering in some way, shape, or form. Or you are matching experiences with multi-galactic beings from other timelines in this plasmic state. So we would say it is a difficult question to answer about how you receive this information because you are all unique. We would ask that in this time, the most important thing to consider is that you are trusting what you are receiving. Because the more that you are trusting that information, the more it is flowing to not only your singular structure, but to all of humanity. And this is what we have defined as disclosure.
You mentioned Akashic records. How do we use that as a tool during this transition? And is there a relationship with our higher souls and our perception? An Akashic record.
Yes, we are pleased to answer this question, and we are the Council of Light. Grid information is something that comes into the analogy of this answer because you are sacred geometric patterns and forms of light. Your genetic basis is made up of genetic patterns of light that are different than your own. So when information is flowing between 2 points, whether it be the earth and another dimensional reality, or yourself and another human being, a grid pattern or a resonance is being achieved. As you have experience is held within these grids. So essentially the Akashic record is an organization of light consciousness or information that is held in a specific pattern for your use. The grids are holders of that Akashic information, but they are alive. They are vibrating in real time. So as information flows between you and another human, or you and an intergalactic being, in real time, information becomes accessed as a part of that Akashic record. Your higher self is a very important tool or conduit for receiving Akashic information, but we don't wish to say it is the end-all, be-all of your vibrational technology. many of you understand that you are able to access the Akashic record through your DNA and through your vibration. It is essentially a vibrational match, in other words, and an intention as a strong vehicle of that DNA match. So, for example, if you are requiring or desiring information from your own Akashic record, if you are sitting in meditation and you are matching the vibration of that energy, you may be able to pull or draw from the grids based on your dimensional access that information in real time. But real time is the point that we truly wish to make here. You see, you believe that the Akashic record exists elsewhere because it is something that has happened in the linear past. But every timeline that you create is vibrating in real time somewhere else in the universe. When you make a decision, for example, the path that is chosen is in the real time of your linear experience. Yet the path that you did not choose is still vibrating somewhere else in real time. So the Akashic record becomes not only a categorization of past timeline information, but also potentials that exist in other timelines that can still be accessed by humanity. This is one of the most important shifts that we see happening here on this planet, is your access of timeline potentials. You believe that because you're making decisions, you are changing your reality, and this is a judgment of good or bad. I've made the wrong decision, so now I'm on a path that I cannot change. But if the Akashic record also holds potentials that you have yet to manifest in physical or chosen differently of, how is it that you could not always be directed back to source or another path through access to that Akash? And that is truly what the higher self technology comes in to assist. You see, to some degree, all of you are integrating that higher self technology right now. The reason for this is that Mother Earth Gaia has within her chakra system a crystallized state that is accentuating your ability to hold the higher self as an integrative tool. What that means is that accessing potentials doesn't mean visceral information must come in to explain what those potentials are, but that you can hold an intention to change your reality and actually receive in real time something that you've already desired or that you've already created in another reality. So as these grid systems are changing, here on this earth, the access to the Akashic record is becoming more fluid. And that is because not only is your structure adapting to a more fluid relationship to this exchange of information, but your collective focus is allowing it to be so.
Hi. Okay, I know you said not to try to keep it from being personal, but I cannot miss this opportunity to speak with light beings and ask for help, truly. I don't know if it's possible, but I would love if you would be able to tune in to the specifics of my life experience these past months and years. So I'll try not to ramble or go on too long. But basically, for some time I was caught up on a path of non-duality and transcending the ego and all of this. And I overcame all the reactionary patterns, and I was going deeper and deeper into states of pure awareness and basically leaving the body behind, becoming so extremely ungrounded, not knowing anything yet about grounding, that all the muscles were starting to just go bad. I would get adrenal fatigue, and when that would happen, I would just think it was meant to be, and I'd just go back into samadhi, basically, to pure awareness. Then some things started happening which I didn't know the warning signs, and long story short, I had my nervous system invaded by all kinds of, we'll just call them lower vibrational forces, which was extremely traumatic. Every day was a battle for my life, basically, not getting any sleep, just trying to do everything I could to stay in the body, because as soon as I went into any state of deeper than the body, I'd get attacked. They'd attack the chakras. So I found out the hard way that the physical body via the nervous system indeed is connected to the chakras, the emotional, and the mental bodies. I had no idea, but they can get into those bodies through the physical body. So, long story short, I've established some ground in my physical body. However, it seems that the heart chakra seems to still be held hostage no matter what I do. And I'm in a state of constant emotional stillness, which most people would think of as a good thing, but it's actually extremely hollow without the heart. It's like not being able to breathe. It's just like a nightmare day after day. And everything that I say, every time, every call, the thousands of calls that I make seem to hold no power. They just seem to be floating words. And I have no intuition. I feel no beings of light around me. It's just like a hollow space day after day trying to survive. So my question is, you talked about not needing protection. However, I find I'm constantly, I don't even know how to trust because of what's happened. It's not that I'm not willing, but I don't even know how, and it's not even practical.
Yes. Okay. Can we answer? We're going to.
Apologies.
We have that. No, you're fine. We have the answer, and we have Divine Mother that comes in for you. And first, I wish to say that there are many on the planet who are trying to let go of the ego as a negative structure of their energetic system. And what we believe is that the ego is a very essential aspect of the self. It has just been turned on you in this earthbound experience, that the ego has been used to place judgment upon the self, as opposed to see the self within the view of all things. In the view of all things, humanity has used the ego as a tool to harness a lower vibration in judgment. And that judgment being released, we believe, is an important part of your ascension timeline. But at the same time, holding the ego structure in the body enables the physical form to relate energetically to the consciousness that it receives, and uses it as a support mechanism or a tool to advance itself beyond its current state. Now, we want to bring you into a remembrance of the previous question about genetic predisposition, because all of you, in some form or another, have genetic predispositions to galactic experiences that may not have been of the highest service or of the highest comfort. But it becomes an interplay between your ability to match those lower vibrational energies and perceive them in a way that are corresponding to something in your physical reality that allows them to become the essence of reality. So in other words, when you perceive lower vibrational beings or attacks upon your energy field, it is not necessarily because these lower vibrational beings are drawing upon your energy so much as that your genetic predisposition may be tapped into in a way that you're matching timelines that don't serve your human experience. And when we perceive protection on this planet, it is a way of separating our energy and not allowing the faith in a higher power or God, as in, again, one of the previous questions, to flow with our experience. You see, the reason that this group was taken outside of its separate or individual energy is to trust that your vibration rises above any of those lower vibrational timelines or catalysts for those timelines that can assimilate in your field. The sense of protection or bringing in a process for protection is sending out an intention to the universe or projecting a timeline that protection from something is needed. And when you are using a tool of protection, you are already setting in motion a potential to bring in that which must be protected from. So living protection is not necessarily living in restriction. Living protection is living in the highest advanced state of vibration you can possibly accept. And that is the trust and faith that you have the ability to match through that genetic predisposition, whatever it is that you so choose. But the root cause here, not being the ego, but the judgment of the self, is what brings in oftentimes these vibrations. we want to give you, we'll call it a vibrational practice or an understanding that will assist you in your day-to-day to release what you feel is an attack upon your physical field and bring you back into the physical body in a way that you are moving as God. Because this higher field of potential, this God energy, it has not left you. It just needs to be placed in your physical awareness, in your day-to-day experience, in a way that is running fluid with what you want to match. So breathe into your heart for a moment. Set in motion the rhythmic breath into that heart space. Because what we wish for you to realize is that although blocks are interpreted as a part of your energetic field, there is nothing within any block that cannot be released through your perception of it. And remember, these transitions that have been spoken of, the way in which our physical field is transforming to something new, sometimes we interpret that as interdimensional beings that aren't of service, or something shows up in our physical body that we define as other than what it truly is. So for a moment, relax into that heart space and understand that perhaps what's going on in that space isn't a restriction, but actually a crystallization of light. And that all of the support that you perceive as not being felt around you is actually becoming so integrated with who you are that it feels exactly like you. That ego structure requires an energetic integration with all things. Not a restriction from, but a going towards. You see, love isn't something that you achieve in this life. Love is a frequency. It's never left you. It's accessible by you when you surrender to what is. And so instead of fighting up against what you feel lies within your heart chakra that you have defined, you being the creator of all things has the ability to redefine what's going on in that space, to not just release the block that lies there, but to open it to a new understanding. The intention that goes out in protection, that draws the likeness to it, is the same as the intention that goes out when you are defining a restriction in a specific field within your energy body. So change the intention. Know that in this moment, the love that you so desire is already within. And to bring you back into your body, practice that ego structure as the I am self. Feel that I am moving through physical reality, exchanging with other humans. Start with eye contact, with a glance, with an acknowledgement. Love doesn't come as an expectation of outer reflection. It comes as a connection to your outer world. And so if you are not embodied in your ego structure in your form, and you are not intermixing, interplaying, orchestrating with humanity in a way that allows that ego structure to experience itself as love through all things, love cannot be present. So moving back into that heart space, can you allow yourself to redefine your experience as a transition back to love? That whatever lies there in this moment, that whatever you're feeling is just the movement of energy towards a new reality. The crystallization process to receive that guidance or that present of guides as the energetic you that is now forming itself based on the experience that you've had. And what if that experience that you had was so purposeful that you are here to not only be the healer of it for yourself, but of others? The higher self within that heart center raises your perspective to something more than what you can possibly see. And that is that this attack that you perceive is not something that you are here to suffer or struggle through. That the attack that you have perceived as a specific timeline on your journey was always bringing you back home to the realization that God exists within. And that love is a frequency that has always been present. But in order to be in that state of love, you have to be embodied in that ego structure, experiencing your reality in real time, in day to day. You believe that your vibration is changing as we are exchanging with you in this very moment. We ask you to feel into that space, that the healing light that is surrounding you in this moment is helping you to shift your intention and your perception around your experience to a vibrational movement towards peace. Perhaps it is no longer disconnection. Perhaps it is no longer stagnant. Perhaps it is perceived as peace. And what if the embodiment of that ego structure in real time were to bring that peace to others?
You mentioned earlier, when you were speaking of the hybridization of humans and the continuing hybridization of humans that we are, as we hybridize ourselves, that Earth was seeded with information. You mentioned specifically plants. I personally work with crystals and minerals for healing. And especially as we use the term crystallization so often, I was curious, are crystals themselves some of the technologies that were seeded by galactic beings to continue to allow us to unlock our own 12-strand DNA? Or are crystals themselves symptoms, for lack of a better word, of Mother Gaia's own crystalline transformation? And are there any crystals in particular that would be helpful for us to continue our own evolution and ascension?
Yes, we're the Lemurian collective, and we're pleased to answer your question. You see, the seeding of humanity involved many elements beyond just plants, which are genetic in basis. Crystals are essentially elemental structures that have been brought to your Earth from other dimensional realities. They were also seeded here as a part of the crystalline core of Mother Earth. When we refer to the core of Mother Earth, we refer to it as a sounding board of acoustic resonance. That sounding board of acoustic resonance is vibrating through crystalline structure. This is how Earth was first formed. When many beings had the intention of expanding the universe and created or birthed a new planet named Gaia, that planet named Gaia was built in crystal. Crystal is essentially light-encoded structure coming together as an elemental frequency holding an intention. There are many forms of crystal that have been brought to your planet and that have also hybridized here. And we want to make this point very clear. In the same way that your intergalactic nature was hybridized and has taken on its own very unique intention to continue to ascend humanity, crystals have done the same. Through time, they have become hybridized through the Earth and transitions within the Earth to support humanity. Yet, crystals are living, breathing ascension tools. They have been combined in many formats. We as the Lemurians have had much ancient and multidimensional experience using crystalline structures, and we have brought crystalline structures to our reality from many different locations. What we have found is that crystalline structures have a consciousness. And when that consciousness is tapped into, the crystalline energy will support whatever the being that is using it needs to create or to heal. And we began in our reality to develop a very specific type of telepathic communication with crystals, such that we were able to honor and respect their intention and their unique genetic codes and combine them in ways that would enhance our collective experience. Crystals also offer a telepathic exchange with the universe. They all have different assignments in this, yet they are combined in very, we will say, multi-galactic ways on your planet to create portals for telepathic exchange as well. Crystalline energies within themselves are not the only, we would say, platform or essence for technologies and healing. But at the same time, what we believe is that as you are receiving more of your intergalactic history or ancient history through the Akashic record, you're receiving more knowledge and ancient wisdom about how to combine and use these crystals for the advancement of humanity. When we speak about crystallization, especially within your chakra fields, we want to explain exactly what we are speaking of. This crystalline core within Mother Gaia is within your own makeup. Crystalline structure is actually within the water in your cellular energy. So if you were to see yourselves under an advanced microscope, within each cell lies crystalline water. That crystalline water is made up of light, and it vibrates in an intention. This is why when you speak to yourselves or communicate with yourselves in a way that is very complementary, you can enhance your own crystalline structure for healing. It is the same as placing intention within a crystal to create a technology or a healing structure. This is within your own field. We believe that as humans become more advanced, what they will begin to realize is that the crystalline energy within your water bodies is also available as a collective source of intention to heal your planet. Now, you've asked, are there specific crystals that humanity should be working with in this time? And again, because of your genetic predisposition and hybridization, we believe that it is difficult for us to answer this question as a collective unity, because we believe that humans will vibrate with different crystalline structures that best serves their unique needs as they are ascending, and that these needs will often change. We believe that right now on the planet in this time, many of the quartz varieties of crystal are very attuned to what you are transitioning through, which is the grid shift. The reason for this is we have brought up in this collective integrative space the plasmic state that many of you operate in being different. Plasmic state is easily accessed with quartz energy. So when you're using a quartz crystal, for example, you are able to time travel or move beyond the current dimension to access information in the Akashic field. Quartz crystals hold these very similar assignments, and they're able to be used in this way, supporting the crystalline water within your field. So when quartz crystals are used, what we find is that plasmic state can be accessed easier, such that humanity can bring forth multidimensional information that is needed to assist their journey. We always advise that those of you who are in human form working with crystals are using your inner guidance as the most resonant tool to choose the crystals that work best with your energy. And that if you are feeling it is not complementing the way in which your physical form is adapting to these energies, that you listen and trust in that guidance to change your relationship to crystals from time to time. Further, we wish to say that the crystals that you have assembled around you are craving your communication and the match of intention. So if there is something that you need to be activated within your field, to be cleared within your field, to be advanced within your experience, communicate this with the crystalline structures that are within your environment and allow them to operate with you in concert.
Thank you so much to all of you for the information that you provide from the bottom of my heart. I received some information, and I just wanted to know if there's a significant solar event that's planned to be in the fall. If you could speak to that or anything around that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we bring Ryan for this question. And you see, there are many solar activations that are taking place upon your planet in this time. As a collective entity, I am pleased to explain these solar activities and many of the ones that have been anticipated by humanity as extreme. You see, the guidance that is coming in now to many of you who are conduits here is that the solar activities will increase. So there will be very dramatic forms of solar activity that are racing through the human collective, forging an advancement in collective consciousness. We perceive this, yes, as a part of your experience. However, we wish to say that every time a solar frequency comes to this planet, the way in which you receive that solar frequency has a ripple effect on how the next one will be received and the variation in which it will be received. What we notice is that humanity is affecting the solar frequencies just as much as the solar frequencies are affecting the Earth and your collective consciousness. You, in human form, perceive that the solar frequencies are an upgrade in your dimension. We perceive that the solar frequencies are only a holding space of your creative energy through time that is given back to you and you are ready to receive it. So going through a process of what humanity defines as disclosure, you can see how the solar frequencies are offering access into dimensional realities through your acceptance of them. But to answer your question, yes, we believe that there are many potentials that are causing these solar frequencies to become more intense. What we believe is that humanity will be receiving a short break in the way that these solar frequencies are activating their structure, such that they can integrate more of what has already been received. Yet at the same time, we believe a higher spike of solar frequencies is coming, especially at the end of this linear month. It is a potential that we see vibrating within your collective reality, because it is something that is not necessarily needed, but offered as a further opportunity. Many of you who are experiencing the significant adjustments in your physical fields are preparing yourselves to receive a heightened interaction with these solar energies. They're coming more in this time as healing information, not only for your soul experience, but to collectively connect what's going on at the soul level with the collective experience. It is an advanced energetic capacity to allow yourselves to step into these physical vehicles affecting the collective in a far more, we will say, fast time-space reality than you have ever experienced before. These will continue to advance your collective energy or ascension timeline for the next linear year. The reason for this is that the planet has connected with a specific code within her that is also activating these solar frequencies to continue. So that which you categorize the end-all be-all of solar frequencies or a heightened effect of solar frequencies will continue in wave form. And this tool, the solar energetic reactions that you are having, this tool within that is offered in these energetics is the basis for your crystallization. In other words, what has been discussed here in this forum as the crystallization of your DNA and the crystallization of your chakras is a full advanced application of what these solar frequencies are offering.
Oh, that was a lot. That was one of my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for everything. Deep gratitude for what you bring through. I have multiple questions. So I'm just going to breathe and let come out. There's two things. One is the date, June 22nd. Really significant, and I think connected to the previous question. And I want to see your take on that, but I also want to ask the other questions, and then you can respond as you feel aligned. So when we're talking about our DNA, completely understand that. And connected to that, I feel like, and I've heard and resonate with the fact that we are ascending both in our humanity, but also galactically And of course, that indicates whatever galactic DNA we have is associated with those star systems also ascending or helping that ascension, yes. So that, okay, wait, pause, ... And then you said about creator beings, and I can't help but think and want to ask, for some incarnates, are there DNA of the creator beings, and have any of them decided to incarnate at this time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we're pleased to answer these questions. We are the Pleiadians. We will take first the date that you have brought up as a question, and we would say that there are many significant dates that here on this planet you will undergo. And as we answer this question, we want to bring in, again, some of the teachings that have been brought forward about the Akashic record and potentials, because as a collective advanced human society, you have embedded within you stargates or codes that enable the planets to revolve around the Earth, activating information from past ancient timelines, not necessarily to revisit them in the same way that they had happened before, but to offer the opportunity or the wealth of information to bring back in the experiences you have had and to recraft or retool them for the advancement of humanity. Time moves in a spiral. And this is why many of these dates arise as a part of these Stargate intentions to bring back significant information. This date in particular, we want to say, is a convergence of sorts of timelines. We have spoken of timeline convergence in many of our transmissions, how you are pulling forth fragmented information from your soul energy and bringing that back into your awareness for the benefit of your own creation. We see this date as a collective coincidence of many timelines that you've experienced previously that is here to further stabilize the new dimensional grid. These timeline convergence energies are not coming from one specific dimension, but many. And we want to say that especially on this date, there is a portal that is opening that is an Oversoul connection. Now, we have not spoken much of the Oversoul in this transmission, but we will remind everyone that the Oversoul is a collective container of perception into your multidimensionality. Because you have asked the question, what about our genetics? How does our genetic predisposition tie into our creative ability? Well, when these specific alignments come and coincide with your genetic predisposition and portals are opened crossing timeline energies, you are able to receive more of your galactic selves. So we see this date as an advancement, especially connecting the upper chakras above the crown and coinciding many timelines that are galactic in nature to your Oversoul energy to apply them in physical or in singular to your own intentions. Sometimes we call these imprints or missions here upon this planet. There are many way showers who are here, conduits such as yourself, that come to advance the collective consciousness in ways that are further stabilizing this fifth dimensional or multidimensional grid. We also see this date as a window of time in which you will be accessing very specific multidimensional information through the upper chakras above the crown to integrate it within your singular experience. Commingling with others who are way showers on the planet. This is how magnetics work. So this genetic predisposition in you is the anchor energy that draws the information in and allows you to magnetize soul partners, relationships, groups of people, individuals that are here to support that which you are bringing forward. So we also see this date and beyond as an opportunity for humans to realign their timelines to new energetic assistance and resources. Further, we wish to say that you've asked the question about how is it that we move into our creative essence and understand who is still here from the origination point of these galactic citizens called humans. Well, if you all hold galactic DNA, if you are all here as a part of these genetic seedings, you all must have been here as origination point energetics or beings to enable humanity to thrive. And We do believe that all of you hold timelines as some of these original Cedars in some way, shape, or form. It may not have been here in physical, perhaps, but it may have been in another dimension, offering an intention or exchanging genetic information in some way to assist the entire process. You see, there are many collectives that came in physical that decided to leave behind some of their ability to resonate as light and modify their reality into a more dense form to seed humanity. Those beings, you have asked the question, are many of them returning or coming back? We believe that the ancient Anunnaki are a group of collective beings or a race that is now accessed your physical reality and returning to the earth in non-physical form. Many of you hold genetic predispositions to this Anunnaki race and are becoming further activated by the proximity to the earth consciousness. As this ascension timeline or shift between grids continues, more interdimensionals will be entering your space. The reason for this is that this new grid energy that has been spoken of, it is very well connected to multi-galactic and dimensional energy. The old grid or third dimensional reality has become segmented, broken, or separated from universal support or universal communication. The reason for this is that the timelines that humans were creating were not conducive to the highest good of the expansion of the universe. And so the Council of Light that oversees the flow of information through the grids took it upon themselves through your agreement to disconnect that grid from the universe. This is why the new grid is continuing to allow new beings to step forward, activating your genetic predisposition and remembrance of your multidimensional selves and gifts.
Could you conclude the session, please?
Yes, we are the Pleiadians. As always in Love and Light, we are very pleased to be in this space with you, honoring in Love and Light all you are becoming and continuing to expand yourselves to be. We wish you many blessings and go in peace. Okay. Final questions, thoughts, anything that I can answer about the process, what we heard today. Don't ask me to remember it all. I won't. Yeah. Well, thank you. It was my pleasure to connect for all of you today. And I hope we will see all of you tomorrow in my sessions. Please stick around if you are here to experience Ethan. He's going to be doing an amazing energy transfer. We'll take a 10-minute bathroom break, and then we'll come back.